get this going. Okay, great. Well, number one, thank you all for taking a couple of minutes here. I hope this is not a super long discussion, but I've got some things that I have researched and I wanted to present to everyone. And then what I'm going to do is probably put these links back on Slack so you guys have access to them. I'm probably going to also put these on the TAR website forum that I put together. I hope that you guys are getting some value out of that a little bit. The questions that are coming to us, if it's something that I can't answer directly, like Savannah had a question last night that I wasn't sure of the answer, and then we've had a couple other things that we had to kind of talk through. Just know that I have JC Johnson's ear at that point, and he's responding to me fairly quickly. I think he's pretty overwhelmed as far as what he's seeing from everyone. I think we're seeing a lot of people freak out for, I don't want to say unjust cause, because it can be confusing what we're going through right now. So I'm going to present some things that I put together here, and I'm going to hit them kind of fast because I'm going to leave them, like I say, I'm going to leave the links for you guys in Slack and then on the forums page. So let me jump over here and present this real quick. I need to present a window, and I'm going to present this. Okay, so this is a Google Doc that I've put together this morning. I got up a little bit early to put all this together so that we would have it. I hope these links all work like I think they will. So let's just see if this is going to do what I think it'll do. I did. Look at that. Look at me go. Okay. Okay. So I updated our backsite TAR forms this morning. You'll see that it says updated 7/31. When you click this, it takes you to a new site that TAR put out since the last time that I was there. This is what it looks like, and it goes through the same stuff that Patty and you and I discussed this, and I think I presented it one day in class. But it kind of goes through some of the questions that they're getting answered. It's not super long. It's just, I think, 4 questions or 3 questions, things that are happening right now. Hopefully I can go back. Oh, it did. Okay, good. I do have the new versions of 1101 and 1102 and 1404, which they've updated those slightly since the last time I had put them up there. So those are the brand new versions. I want to point out a couple of things down here in the buyer doc, because I think that that's where we're seeing the majority of our questions come, is on the buyer side. Listing side is going to have some questions too. But I've put in here just a note, if you'll look right there underneath the 1501, preferred over the short form. By that, I think that the long form is a better comprehensive look at how our buyer agency is going to work in the future. I'm not opposed to the short form, especially for a Zillow lead, a one-off showing, something of somebody that you don't know, and you're just trying to get your foot in the door. I'm completely fine with the short form, but when you do the short form, well, then you know that you're going to probably be going back to amend that at some point. Just want to cut down on the workload the best we can. I have uploaded new versions of 2402 and 2406. They're similar to what you saw before. I think they only changed a couple of words. You'll notice that it's got this green thing here that says when to use, see below. We're going to drop down and look at that in just a minute. I'm going to stop for a second and talk about 2406 because we're going to look at it too. But this form is if the seller listing has not offered compensation to a buyer. This is the one that is probably going to be one of our friends and one of our enemies, because people are going to use it incorrectly. And we're going to it's down here at the bottom of the page. So give me just a second. I do want to hit that amendment to representation agreement, a 2701, that form is used to update your rep agreements. And this is listing agreements and buyer rep agreements. So everybody that you are working with and you have a representation agreement with, buyer or seller, The 2701 is your quickest path to, I'm not letting Kristen's note taker in, sorry. Okay. So the 2701 is the quickest path to get a client. What is the deal with this stuff, y'all? Sorry. I'm just going to leave that window open so I can just deny it when it opens up. The 2701 is the quickest way to amend your current representation agreements and get you in compliance with the settlement. Do you have to go back and get a new buyer tenant representation long form? Not if you use the 2701. Everybody going forward, anybody new to your sphere that you have coming in, we want a 1501 or a 1507. Please understand, one of those two forms needs to be signed before you show a property. MLS is going to be checking these things. I don't know how. I didn't ask the question, but on some of the broker forums they've been talking about, they're saying that, you know, anytime they get any type of complaint, they're going to be asking for your 1501 or your 1507 on the buyer side. Obviously, the listing agreement is the one that we're going to use on the listing side. So those are the forms that you guys need to be very familiar with how to use them. So I'm going to go ahead and drop down now a little bit and show you some of the things that are down here. Savannah, this might have been helpful to you last night while we were having your stuff. So this is, and I talked to JC over the phone, JC Johnson, attorney for Johnson Dorset and something. Excuse me. This lays out pretty much how things are going to go. Now, I want to drop down a little bit further and show you something that JC, well, he didn't say that there. It's actually back on this form. JC said that the most asked question so far is, do I need to submit a 2402 and a 2406 with an offer? His answer was, if the 2402 is executed with your offer, the 2406 is not needed. So I want everybody to understand the 2402 is the document you need to be using with your offers. I'm seeing heads shaking. That's good. Okay.
Sorry. I think, is that the compensation agreement between brokers? I thought that, at least this morning, that it said, get this before you submit an offer. Is that not what that form says?
Get this signed, this form signed before you submit an offer.
Okay. So then the 2402 is, I call a listing agent and they say, yep, we're paying 3%, 4%, 5%. I send this form over. They sign it and send it back to me. I don't need the other form.
Correct.
Unless something changes.
Correct.
Okay.
And
Can
then
you submit it with the offer, or do you have to do it before you send an offer?
I've been hearing from several people it is a pre-offer document.
Okay.
And the only pushback I'm going to give on that is that if you send it over and then you're waiting for it to come back before you submit an offer and your offer doesn't get in there, that's the only pushback I'm going to give. Is I don't want to wait to send an offer.
Right.
I don't know about compensation yet.
Right.
That's why I thought that these two would go together. Like,
Yeah.
I would send these both over.
JC's direct comment was, if the 2402 is executed, his words were with or pre-offer, the 2406 is not needed.
Okay. I can see where as a buyer, I'm trying to get the offer sent over, and I will probably send both of these if I haven't received it back.
Correct.
Okay.
My buyer, we just went under contract yesterday, and she included both forms, the 2402 and 2406. And that's where I was confused if we needed both, but she just sent both over with the offer. So
I understand.
yeah,
And
neither of us really knew, but we figured it was better just to
yeah, Savannah, I think it actually is redundant because they're the same. It's just a different way of saying it. Now the 2406, if you'll look at the bottom of our website here, this is executed by the seller and the buyer. This line right here. Can y'all see that?
Mm-hmm.
is executed by the seller and the buyer and can be included as part of an offer package delivered to a seller. It may also be executed later in the transaction.
Or earlier.
It's what it's saying. It may be done later. It
Okay.
doesn't have to be. And you'll look right here under 2402, read this one right here. Executed by the listing broker and the buyer's broker before the offer is presented. That's what this is from TAR.
Yeah, but anyways, what listing agent is going to want to sign all that stuff if they don't even have an offer in hand? I mean, okay, yeah, but it's desk work. And so I can see where it'd be like, well, just send it over with the offer.
I understand. I think that's what it's going to come to, Jana. I think that most agents are going to just say, thank you for, especially right now where we're not getting, 40 offers.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say, well, just send over the 2402. We'll sign it when we're signing the agreement, the contract.
Can I ask one more question? I'm sorry, Savannah, I saw you.
No, you're good.
On the 2402, the compensation between brokers, you're registering a specific client for a specific property. And on number 3, what would be the suggested term of the agreement?
Of the 2402?
Yes, sir. I understand that I'm asking listing broker to pay on this client for this address, but what would I put in for the term? For 1 day, 1 year, 1 month?
I don't think that there's a right answer. I don't think that there is one answer that you should put in there, because this is compensation between a compensation agreement between brokers. So
Yeah,
45
my buyer's agent, she just put 2 months. The term began on July 28th and then it expires on September 28th. And that's after our close date. So maybe the term is until you close.
I would
Well,
agree with that.
Okay, so I think that makes sense if you're sending it with an offer, but if I'm gonna go show your property, am I okay to share with them my client's information, their name?
I don't see how you can get around it.
Okay, so if it's before an offer, then maybe it might be,
Well,
3
but now see this one, the 2402 is just between me, Brian, the broker, and the other cooperating broker. It doesn't have, does it say a registered client? Yeah. So
yeah, you register a client's name.
Yeah.
This is another way the MLS police are gonna get around, like knowing if we did sign anything, is I'm registering Nicole Huckabee on this date for this amount of time. So I don't necessarily have to do an offer in the next week. I could wait. We could be like, hey, we saw that property a month ago and I still have my registration, or I still have my compensation agreement. So I guess thinking through that a little bit, depending on where you're at, is important. I just didn't know what time to put in there.
yeah, I think it's good. Jana, do you have any input on that?
No, I haven't really thought about that yet.
Well,
Okay.
we're all thinking about these blanks at different times as they come up to us. So I think it's good that we have these conversations.
Okay.
Going on down into what we were talking about, there's going to be a lot of stuff. I'm leaving all this stuff up here on the TAR Forms website just because this is the best way to understand which form you need and why and when.
I do have a question though, because in looking at the compensation agreement that we're supposed to get signed before we place an offer, that's just the agent signing off on it. And it's an agreement between the brokerages.
Correct.
But the addendum regarding broker's fees requires the buyer and the seller to sign because it's part of the contract. And so there's a part of me that still wants to include it.
Well, I don't think that you'll be wrong to do that. I just think it's redundant.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Brian,
it's just not part of the contract. If we just send in the compensation agreement, it's just an agreement between, well, it's just like instead of the MLS, here's this.
And so in JC's words, let me just I'm going to pull up JC's actual words that he texted me this morning.
I agree with you, Jana. I think that 2406 needs to be with the offer, because otherwise you're getting yourself back in trouble that you haven't communicated with your buyer and seller.
It seems like 2406 has a place for seller concessions where 2402 doesn't.
Correct. And if
So-
you were to go and amend the contract, when you do an amendment, that's what you're going to be stating is you're amending that contract if there's any sort of change.
Yeah, so then it almost makes sense because that's my seller is paying the buyer's agent commission as well as 12,000 in concessions. So then the buyer's agent would have to bring in 2406 to add in the D2 of the seller concessions as well. Is that make
But
sense?
you
Is
could-
that right? Does that seem right?
I mean, you can still do an amendment for seller's concessions. That's still an amendment that sits out there when you're doing repair negotiations. So you don't have to figure out concessions up front if you're submitting 2406 with your offer.
Yeah, that's
Well,
a good.
Unless they just said that they'd rather do concessions, but then you're going to have to amend if you have repairs and put the full amount of concessions. And then
Well, and you're so right because we haven't gotten to repairs yet. So we filled out the 2406 with commission and concession. And then you're right, after repairs, we'll just have to add another amendment of probably concessions.
where are we with lending in terms of how much concessions we can take? Have they put into play a stipulation
Yes.
that says you
Yes.
can take extra? Okay,
I put a link on Slack yesterday
okay.
that Freddie and Fannie are not considering agent concessions as part of the buyer's concessions. They're not part of lending.
That was very helpful. However, I have had a couple of lenders. I'm like, how do you want to see that? And I think that was my question in Slack was if there's no BAC, right? Broker's not paying me, but I'm going to put it in the offer. I'm going to be using the addendum regarding broker's fees. So my example was a $300,000 house has a 6% maximum for seller concessions. And I need to include my compensation. If the client needed the full 18,000 for rate buy down, closing costs, and then I add another 9 on top, I'm asking for $27,000 in concessions essentially. Does the lender need to see that broken apart, or does the 2406 do that just fine?
If they see the 2406, because lending is going to have to respond to the way that we start doing things. That's the bottom line. Or we're going to have to change the way that we're doing things to fulfill the lender's needs. That's where we are. Now we're 3 days into this and this stuff's not even mandatory until the 17th.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to figure all these little intricacies out. I don't know how they're going to answer that. I can't. All I know is that Fannie and Freddie are not considering the agent's BAC as part of the buyer's concessions that he's allowed to take. It's on top of that.
Okay.
So what is to gain by choosing concessions to the buyers rather than a buyer's agency compensation upfront? I don't understand why we would do concessions instead of just doing it the way we've always done it and having it as a separate line item. I mean, it comes out, I don't know. That just blows my mind why we have two different ways to pay a buyer's agent. But I don't understand why.
Yeah, I'm still trying to reel and figure out all of the little intricacies of these different forms, and I don't get them yet. I understand some of the reasoning behind why the things are there, but as far as executing and getting the things done, I'm still struggling.
Do you think we can lean on title to know if we're submitting the right forms or not? Like, who's going to tell us if we use the wrong form or, you know what I mean?
Yes, I know what you mean. And all the classes I'm getting reports from everyone. All of the classes are saying, here are all the new forms. Look at this. You need to put this, put this here. And then somebody asks a question and they go, you need to ask your broker. And the brokers are all talking in the background going, the hell?
We don't
I
know
have
either.
no idea.
From my point of view, the only reason we're adding concessions in there is so that we can say it on the MLS. That's the only advantage I see to that.
Say that again, Jana, a little bit closer to the mic,
The only advantage I see to saying that it's a concession instead of just making it buyer's agency compensation is so that you can put it on the MLS and advertise it.
Is that, I haven't seen it. Is the yes, no question there with any?
I haven't seen it yet.
Okay.
I
Okay.
haven't seen it yet.
I,
So-
never mind.
Go ahead,
Okay.
Jana.
No, never mind.
Okay.
It's redundant.
Okay. I think everybody's seeing, I think some of the stuff we saw in Slack yesterday of people getting creative. I actually have put into the private remarks of one of my listings to see if I would get flagged. I've put in our website, our BAC, the seller concessions, and I've actually changed the name of that for right now to BAC offered is what it says right now. I'm still toying with that if we can get away with doing that. But I did put in my private remarks bit.ly and then the word / and then the 6AH concessions. I'm going to see if I get flagged to see what we can get away with and what can pass through the censor there at MLS. I haven't been flagged and it's been in there for 2 days.
Well, just
Could it
don't get
not just be-
fired.
Do
Could
what?
it not just
Just
be an
don't get
offer?
fired. Yeah.
Somebody's asking a question.
Could it not just be agent offer instructions? I
No,
would
it
think that
can't.
would be pretty specific.
Yeah, it can't be anywhere on MLS.
No, I know, but instead of it saying BAC, which I feel like would get flagged more than if you were to just say agent offer instructions.
And what respect, Clarissa? I mean, how would that look if you put agent offer instructions? Are you putting up another document into transaction desk?
No, it's taking you to the link.
Oh, okay. Well, links are not allowed on MLS at all. Unless you're a preferred or a licensed vendor, I forgot what they call them, approved vendor, you can't put a link. So like they don't allow slashes, and that's how they get around it. In the private remarks and in your property description, you can't have a slash.
Right, right.
So there's no way to put a link in there. So that's why I wrote the word / to see if it would actually pass the censor. I don't know
Okay.
if it's going to work or not.
I get it.
Okay.
So there-
Okay. So
was-
let me go back over here. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
There was one other thing that I was told, because a lot of people were saying that maybe we could reroute them to, our website, and then, or it be specific to whatever the house is, that would have its own website or its link, whatever. Well, if you're rerouting somebody to your site where that property is, and you want to have your information, the brokerage, just to show what the BAC is, it's fine as long as the site that you're routing them to does not pull homes from Matrix or from the MLS. That's what they said.
Okay. I haven't had that understanding. My understanding is that the MLS can't pull from your site. Meaning that if your personal site, you have a home listed 123 Main Street, and you've got in the property description, we're offering 3% buyer's agency commission. On your personal website, you can say whatever, you can have a picture of you going 3, whatever the case may be, as long as that doesn't feed back to the MLS to
Right.
keep the BAC off of it. That's my understanding, is that's acceptable, which is why I created the new TAR forms or the BAC concession that I put up on our site. It's
I
not,
think both. I thought you can't pull from MLS and or vice versa. I guess maybe that's the way that it was instructed to me.
well, we're going to hit a couple of these other things. Somebody else had a question though. I want to
Yeah,
ask.
me. On the MLS, it does have office website, and you can put in a website for the office. So why wouldn't we just, instead of, the generic page that pops up, or maybe there's a link on the office website that says buyer's agency commission. That page that you've created could be a link
Tab.
across the top of our website that they could click on and find that information, rather than typing out slash and making them, because you can't, it's just, I think a link would be quicker, and I've heard of other brokerages utilizing a link.
Okay, so
Like on Jen Warren's listing, I think it's Jen's. Whose is this? Yeah, Jennifer Warren's listing for 714 Meadow Hill Road. Down at the bottom where it's got 6th Avenue Homes, Jennifer Warren. It's got listing agent email, listing agent website, which she could put it in there, or office website, www.6thAvhomes.com. Why can't we do / additional info or listing info or whatever?
because forward slashes are not allowed on the MLS at all.
Okay, so instead of that, do you see what I'm
Yeah.
saying? now?
I think that those are, I think those are put in to, let me check something real quick. I'm actually in MLS. Yeah, I think even on the broker side, I'm not allowed to change the office email, but let me double check this.
So,
It's not email, it's website, but you could put a link, like when the office website pops up, it's buy and sell, it's interior design, it's construction, new builds, it's pool and outdoor, our work, who we are, resources. I mean, it could be a link right there on that top navigation bar that says listing information or buyers, listing BAC or however you want to do it. And then
It could do that. I have, to be perfectly honest with you, I've been reluctant to do it because I wanted to make sure of the rules before I jumped off and got us a fine.
no, I'm sure, I appreciate that, but I've heard of other brokerages doing that, like making it a link on their listing. That
Okay.
way you can go to it, but it's not feeding the MLS.
That's my understanding.
Mhm.
And so I'll check into that because that was the whole point of me designing that page with the BAC, was that we could have it there. And then if I could figure out a way that it wouldn't cross any lines, then I would put it up there
Mhm.
under the homes. I can modify our website to have the BAC, and it just may say BAC. And, all of us buyers agents and listing agents know what that is.
Well, and then in your remarks, you can say, for, whatever it is that you just put up there about clicking slash link, just click office website below.
All right, very
Go
good.
straight to it rather than copy and paste and type it in and blah, blah, blah.
Savannah, go ahead.
So I went under contract on the 22nd for the sale of my house. The buyer's agent did not include a 2406 or a 2402. We are paying buyer's agent commission as well as concession for repairs. Do I need to tell him that we need to execute the 2406?
When are you closing?
The 21st of August.
Yes.
Okay. Just want to
If
make
you're
sure.
closing after
The 17th.
August 17th, then you have to have the new forms and the new addendums in place.
Okay. And then do we still need the 1903 amendment, which is what he sent over for the concessions for the repairs?
yeah.
So the concessions will be on both documents?
I believe that's true, and I
Okay.
think it's redundant.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's just
but
not going to like double it. It's like,
Wait,
okay.
wait. So if I read the 2406 right, 2406 D2 block 2, it says the seller shall pay X dollars or percent towards the other broker's fees. That has nothing to do with your repairs.
Right.
This form is saying listing broker is going to pay a BAC, that's D1, that's my understanding, or the seller is also, or in addition to, because there could be a situation where they say 1% is coming from listing broker, the rest of all of seller concession and paying the other broker, such as the 2401, that it could come out of D2.
okay, so if you go back to this and look right here, This is what it's telling you about the 2406. There's also, I'm sorry, let me.
Oh,
highlight-
that's been updated because I printed that this morning and it had D2, and I was like, I don't know what that means.
Okay, there's also the 2406, the flow chart on how to use the form, and then the FAQ on how to use the form, which is here, and it actually goes paragraph by paragraph of what you need to do.
Yeah, so I would say, Savannah, I don't know, I think what you're saying is you've got an agreed concession for repairs, which is one thing.
Correct.
You would not need the 2406, the seller to agree to concessions again there, because that is a separate place that's saying it's going to go pay the broker. It's going to go pay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll keep the 1903 amendment with the 10,000 concessions, and then I'll just need to do the 2402 for the seller paying the buyer's agent.
Executed by the listing broker and buyer's broker before the offer is presented. So that's the 2402.
Yeah,
We need
and we didn't do that. He didn't include any of the new forms with the offer, and we've already gotten under contract out of option.
I think it's the 2406 and it's
I do too.
it's the
I do too.
2406 one.
D1, okay.
You don't need the other one. You're past now. The other one, you're
Past
beyond.
that point. Okay. Okay, cool.
Get into a situation with this because on the compensation agreement between brokers, it doesn't have the seller's signature on it. So you don't know, I mean, you could find out, but it's just a hairy mess. Did the listing agent include broker's fees for the buyer's agent on their listing agreement or not? Whereas if you just do the one that requires the buyer and the seller to sign, the 2406, it's cleaned up. You know, do you see what I'm saying? Like, I don't know if they would have to go back and amend their listing agreement to include that or not.
No, it's on the 2406, A says the addendum controls.
Right, right.
So this one trumps everybody, whether you have,
Yeah, so I feel like it's a better form.
yeah.
For
I
some.
think the 2402 is a big fat waste of time and it's going to make us all crazy, but that's my opinion.
Mhm.
I completely agree with you. I think it's a redundant thing that doesn't have to be done. If you guys look down on this right here, the addendum regarding the broker's fee, the 2406, it may also be executed later than transaction. Check box D2 and box D2A and insert the agreed upon amount.
And that is just regarding broker's fees. So to Savannah's example, repairs and any other concession for closing costs or anything, that's going to go in the contract. And that's why I'm just trying to make sure in my brain, in special provisions, do we have to say, if at the very beginning, assuming like this isn't there, do we say seller concession of 9,000 to pay me, to pay the broker, 9,000 of whatever I'm asking for in the contract, 9 of it's coming to me. Whatever else is left there, if it's 5,000 left, you can use that for closing costs, buy down, whatever. Just watch your numbers to make sure that you stay under. And if seller concession truly is not going to take our commissions into place, that's the way I see it. I've asked 3 attorneys for their response. If we need to say something to cover ourselves in special provisions, to go and say, hey, go look at this one. 9,000 of this seller concession I'm asking for is coming for broker's fees.
Okay, and what did the attorney say?
Not one has responded. They're awesome today.
Yep. Well,
I'm okay with it. I haven't gotten that far. I just want to make sure I look at the addendum regarding broker's fees is either it's coming from the listing broker and we're telling you it's coming from the listing broker, or it's coming from the seller.
correct.
And that's just my fees. It has nothing to do with anything else.
Patty, do you know one of the reasons why I think they're maybe not responding also is, okay, so let's just say they use all of the concession to go towards the buyer, right? And not to go towards your commission. You get to closing and they've closed, they've gotten, all that concession, then you're basically FUCK because you'd have to go after them. You know what I mean? You have to go after them. Or the brokerage would have to go after them to sue them. And if
Well-
we're talking about a $300,000 house and it's a, low commission, are you really going to sue somebody for that amount? I think that's what we're going to start seeing if they end up using the concession for the full buyer and not towards for you.
Well, that's what the 2406 tells them. So the 2406 by contract says some of that, whatever the total I ask for, is coming to the broker.
For the
It's a bloody mess. Negotiate buyer agency commission if you have a listing. That'll make your life so much easier.
Right.
So I guess
Well-
if this document goes to the lender and the title company, then they're gonna know. We
Yeah.
may
well,
have to remind them a few times before any numbers get sent to their buyer or to our buyer.
Okay. All right, guys, we're gonna move on from that because I got a couple more things I want to talk about, and we'll get about 25 minutes here. Some of the questions that we're asking, like I said, I'll put all these links here, but I want to show you some of these things. So this is the NRR settlement and forms changes FAQ. It is a little bit longer than the other one. It's got some more things about compensation. I encourage you to go read these. We don't have time to go through them all. I'd love to, but none of us can afford 4 hours to go looking through this as a group. It just won't work. This one is the NAR settlement FAQ. It's much more generic, much bigger, talking about who's covered, what's covered, just stuff that you guys may need to know in the future. I'm putting all this out there just so that we have a copy of it. This is Trex FAQs. I'm under the impression, I'm hearing that the BLM, the Broker Lawyer Committee, is going to meet, and they are going to be considering some changes that could go into effect in November. I was told January originally, but apparently it's going to be November when those changes could go into effect. So maybe we'll get some clarity by then. I know that's 3 months away, but you know what? It is what it is. Okay. The forms description. This one is just for reference. If you guys are looking for something, I've often, if you're going through, trying to go through zip forms or something, looking for all the different forms, this is a great resource of 20 pages of all the different things. So you can pull this up on your computer, hit Control F or Option F, and be a Command F and be able to search a word to pull that contract up. And that way you can see something that's there. I thought that would be a good resource for everyone. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a webinar. It's just the paper part of it, but it kind of goes through the settlement, what's the things that are going on, what we're going to look at. So I'm going to put a link to that webinar. I don't have the audio, but I did find this video PDF presentation. This is TAR's legal FAQs. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this, but all of TAR's legal FAQs are on this page and they're lengthy. Okay. This is another great resource for all of us to keep. So having this stuff here, I think is on our TAR forms site for 6th Ave, I think is going to be beneficial for us to get some answers if we need them. This is from Homes and Rentals, I think, HAR. And this is some of their FAQs. So I was going to put those up there. It's much shorter, much easier to understand. So we're going to kind of go this direction and have this stuff here. Last couple of things before we get into more conversation, for our BAC website. Okay. So 6th Ave's BAC, seller concessions, whatever we're going to call it. Right now it's BAC. If you decide to change something on your listing, I know it's one more step and I'm sorry, but let me know. That way I can go change our BAC website. You can text me, you can PM me on Slack, you can smoke signal, whatever you want to do. Get the information to me so that I will know to get that changed. It's not a hard thing for me to change. It's really, it's just literally one website. Let me see if I can get this up there and you guys see it. So that's all that our site is this one form. And it's literally me going in and changing one thing on a spreadsheet. So if you get a new listing, fill this information out, send it to me. so that I have it, and you can send it to me even before you put it on MLS. I don't care, because this is not going to be feeding MLS. It's not going to be feeding anywhere. But I'm putting the new stuff at the bottom. As things close, I will be taking them off this list. So this is just going to be a live spreadsheet working forward from now on for us, at least until we figure out what the heck we're going to do with all this stuff that they're giving us. Last note from me before we get into conversation. I don't know if you guys saw my Slack thing. Brian Buffini is predicting the fourth quarter to be 40% of what we're going to do as agents this year. If that rings true, we are going to be very busy, and we're going to be busy enough right now on this learning curve, trying to figure all these forms out, how to use them, what we're using. I would please ask everyone, if you're going to ask me a question, please ask it on Slack. The reason that we want it on Slack is because we can do it as a group, number one. Number two, somebody else will learn something from the question that's being answered. It may not be me answering. It may be Patty. It might be Clarissa. It could be Maria Gonzalez. Could be Jana. Could be Savannah. Megan Chow may have experience on some of the stuff, and she's able to answer a question quickly for somebody, for me even. So let's ask things on Slack if we can. I think it's the smartest place for us to keep things. If you do respond, please don't respond on the page. Go over to the right-hand corner and click the threads and reply in thread. That way Slack is not just jumbled with stuff, and we can try to keep things straight. Please answer in thread if you can. All that being said, Buffini is Do It Now program. Now is the time to plan out and schedule your social media posts for the fourth quarter and even into the first quarter, because if this thing bleeds over from fourth to first, we're going to be busy. Milestone for 6th Avenue, this week we passed where we were at the end of 2023. We are in the seventh month, the last day of the 7th month, and we passed what we did last year. We're within 11% of hitting the number of closings for last year, and we're within 9% on some of the other things. But as far as overall payouts to our agents, we passed that this week. So congratulations to everyone. I'll be sharing that again when we get to the office meeting on August the 7th, which is next Wednesday. Hope to see you all there. Conversation can begin. Questions can begin. We've got 20 minutes left on our meeting. If anybody wants to ask questions and talk, I'm going to quit talking and turn my mic off and listen.
So real quick, Brian, I got a really, and I know we all got it, but just so that you can add it to your fun fact sheet that's a mile long. Thank you for doing that. But NAR sent out some really good social media posts that you can put out there that sort of says what to do if you're a seller, what to do if you're a buyer. That's really easy to put out there so that, if you're having those conversations, it makes it a little easier. That's what I just sent you. So I think that might be a good way to just cleanly put something out with maybe your notation if you want, so that we can start, building the confidence back in the buyers and sellers that we're okay. Like, this is okay.
And this is, what is this again, Patty?
So if you click on, the fact sheets, like click on for sellers, but down, yeah, right there. Sorry, I'm pointing at my screen like you can see it.
Yeah, I read over those this morning and they are
So,
very useful.
yeah, so you can share this on your social media, your LinkedIn, because it's getting talked about, and who better to talk about it to your clients or your sphere than you, and then you can put your commentary. But this is a direct link to NAR, so it's not like we're figuring out the words or AI chatbotting anything. It's like, this is what's happening. This is how it's affecting you. This is how we'll be doing business, so that we can remain professional, above board, and stay with what NAR is also communicating.
Okay, so this is, what's the summation of what they're calling this though?
So if you read, let me go to, it's from Katie, hold on.
Katie Johnson, the chief legal officer.
Yeah.
I'll just call this message from NAR on settlement facts. That's what I'll call it.
Yeah, and a lot of what you have out there is great for us, but it's not great for us to share. right? So that's the sellers and buyers. The way I read that was that is a very professional way for us to share what's happening in our industry without us dissecting it or having our own interpretation of what's happening.
There's a lot of good stuff on NAR that can be shared that way. They've got the 179 ways a real estate agent is helpful. 105 more ways that goes specifically into buyer's agency. Like, those are great things to just not go over because it would take forever in your consultations, but to give them a copy of, and just, if whether it's printed out or a link or something, that maybe it's included in your pre-listing email, after you set your appointment and you're going to go meet with them, or your pre-buyer consultation email where you're confirming your date, time, put a link to some of these things in there so that they can be reviewing. And it just is third-party validation. It edifies us as agents. It makes them think about things that they could never think of because they don't know what all we do.
Yeah.
All right, I've got it linked in there for you guys, and that's got all the links in it. Jenna, the good point about the different ways that we can represent our clients. I think that we shared those earlier this year in one of the meetings.
Mhm.
I've still got them saved somewhere. Would y'all like to have them quick linked in on the Let's Talk forums?
I think it would be a great piece to have for consultations or for, initial emails that just kind of gets people thinking. I mean, that's how I'm going to use them. I've already got them saved, and I feel digitally they're probably going to be best used. It's too much to print out, too much ink. But
Yeah. Or you can pull out like what you feel like. I mean, a lot of it, Jen, I've read them and I'm like, okay, that's kind of, it's a lot. It's redundant. It's like, okay, I pick up the phone. Yeah. But
some of it, yes.
you can pull out and put in your presentation, be like, hey, these are just some of the things, right? But there's so many more, but I have it in my presentation as well.
Well, and you want to obviously put things in there. You want to call out things that they absolutely have no idea how to do.
Right.
Like the appraisal, or
Right.
Concessions, repair negotiations, anything that would just like any kind of title issue or whatever. They're going to be like, oh yeah, I don't know how to do that. Those are the things you want to call out. But I just feel like buyers, agents that maybe haven't done a whole lot of negotiating for their own compensation could use some edification and some validation and a quick tool to boost a little confidence and put something out there in front of the buyer to enhance their position. Just thinking about ways that we can help them,
Yep. I have one question about the 1417, and I haven't been able to get it answered. This is the representation disclosure that when I got this the first time, it said this is what you had to bring to open houses to hand out to everybody, and then that was quickly retracted. Can somebody please tell me who signs this?
Okay, so if I'm not mistaken, the 1417 is the representation disclosure. Well, we've always had this disclosure. It's a new version.
Okay.
But we've always had something similar to this. Normally we would have done it. I think it would used to be called broker registration or something like that. Seller represent. It used to be where you could disclose, like if you were going to see a FSBO, that you could register that your client with the for sale by owner, that if they bought something that they were registered to you. I believe that's what it is.
Okay. So,
or if you go to new construction, that would be, but they always have their own forms that you fill out, but that would be.
but so who is the printed name signature? Who gets it? Is it the buyer, the seller, or the brokers? it just says printed name signature. So when I use this, I still don't know when, who do I put it in front of to say, please sign this?
I'm looking, hang on.
Okay.
I can't even figure out how I'd want to use it.
Would this be an appropriate time for me to,
Would it
Yeah.
not be whoever you check?
broker represents the following party? I've clicked, I'm representing the seller, and who am I going to give it to?
The seller.
Whoever. So it's concerning a specific property. So Patty, I'm my address. I work for 6th Ave. I'm Patty Smith. This is my license. This is my broker's license. I represent the seller. Who am I giving this to?
Well, if you're representing the seller, you would give it to a buyer if need be.
So
Why would you need be?
why would I need B? Yes, Jana, help.
You're muted, Jana, you're muted. Hit your
This
pink
isn't
bar.
for scary.
How did I do that? I don't even know how I did that. Right here on the form, it says the undersigned persons acknowledge there is no agency relationship with broker as of the date of this disclosure. So somebody that doesn't have any agency relationship with the aforementioned would sign this. So that's why that FSBO thing makes sense. Or
At an
I don't
open
even-
house.
Yeah, but they retracted the open house right away.
Yeah,
Because
open house, as long as you're representing, if you're doing an open house for 6th Avenue and it's Patty's listing and Savannah's holding Patty's listing open, she doesn't have to disclose to any buyer or anybody that she works for anybody other than 6th Ave. Now, if Savannah goes and holds, a Compass listing or something else, then that may be a different story at that point. So I personally don't like we've got enough agents at 6th Ave that if I need an open house, somebody at the office will do it. I get calls all the time on my listings for people saying, hey, can I hold your house open? I'm like, well, it's a vacant house. I don't care, whatever. Well, now I care.
So again, because I know that there are agents in our office that have other agents with other brokerages hold open houses on occasion. Who is it, the agent that is holding the open house, or is it that would need to then have this form? So if I have Jill Smith from Compass come hold mine open, what do I tell her? You have to have these forms sitting there signed?
Yeah, I would say that you would have to disclose to every person that walked through. They would need to at least see this form, if not sign one. So, I mean, do you all of a sudden go print, 20 copies if you're going to have 20 people come to an open house and have everyone sign it? But that's pretty much what looks like they're forcing us to do. If you're holding another brokerage's house open.
All right. Well, I've done that never in my entire career. So I'm just not going to start. So
There you go.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have questions? Anything else that we need to kind of hit? Like I say, I'll put all these links that we've been talking about here. All this stuff I'll put in a Slack message after this is over, along with a link for the video, so that if anybody wanted to go back and watch it. Any other comments or anything else we need to cover?
no, thank you for doing this so quickly. I think it always feels good to talk through it.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Brian, is today your birthday?
Today is my birthday.
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you, ladies. Appreciate y'all. Thank you, Brian. I
All
got
right,
Brian
thank
gave me a
you.
thing.
Yeah. How do we? I
Happy
don't know.
birthday.
Yeah. What do we do? How do you clap or something? Oh, I don't want to raise my hand. I want to clap. Yay.
I think you just do like this. Mine does it when I do this.
Oh, I want to do that. I don't know. That's way past my pay grade.
But yeah, I got a thing on my side that said that you were giving me a bugle or something.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you all for taking the time to be with me today. I hope that we've gotten a little bit of something out of this. if nothing else, me doing 2 hours of extra research this morning, we got some links that we can store and keep for future reference. But
Yeah.
thank you all very much. We'll see y'all next week, next Wednesday.
Thank
Bye.
you.